All rise for the jury.
Can we approach while they're coming out to us?
Yeah.
Please be seated.
All rise for the jury. Oh, okay. I gotta check something. Did you say it? Okay. Did you say
What's too much public? I don't want to get her in the tank.
Well, she's never touched it.
You may be seated.
All right.
Correct?
Again, she goes off 2 below the stairs.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
All right, the jury.
Bring the jury back up. By saying, you know, the cocaine is formally admitted, there was a stipulation. I think I said, okay, fine. The court is going to indicate that that was tantamount to an admittance, and I'm going to allow any argument regarding that at that time. Plus, at the end of your proof, I believe there was a statement made about evidence that was outstanding. You moved towards admission for anything that we forgot, and that the court admitted it at that time. So I will allow you to make any reference that you need to.
Don't need to, Judge. Thanks for the time.
Okay, very good. You may proceed. Let's start back on.
All right, so we're going to dim the lights.
25 minutes, sir.
25, not 30, Judge? 35?
Maybe in another courtroom, but not in here. Go ahead.
We're going to look, we're not going to do the screen now, ladies and gentlemen. What we're going to do is we're going to look at the screen here, because this is, I'm doing my closing argument again, okay? This is what I want you to look at if you go inside. If you choose to evaluate this evidence, you're going to be able to do this by looking at it frame by frame, as Ms. Brennan has indicated to you.
Okay.
I have a pointer so that I can point out to you what it is that I think that's important. We need to eliminate the lights, please.
Take the lights off.
Well, there's two lights in the back.
Dee Dee. John, can you do that?
And what I intend to do then is take you through this portion and then the 10-second period after it. But there's two things that you should focus on if you do choose to look at it, and that is the movement of the scout car, if you see it. And the second is the vehicle that has been coming from right to left. At this point, it's close to the overhead light for the street. In this general area, please. Alex, will you please go step by step, frame by frame?
I'm starting at 21:48:27.
You will see at this point when it comes under light that you will see color. We believe the proofs show that this is a car consistent with the description that has been given to you of a white colored Cadillac. It will appear better when you're on the computer. It appears better in the screen here than it does on that screen, and that's the reason for showing it. You see it now coming out of view? All right, let's continue. This is a continuation at the same time, and you will see, hopefully, what happens to the police car. You see the car moving, ladies and gentlemen. We contend that that car is moving so that the officers can get a better view of the white vehicle that passed, which the budget end would be on your left-hand side. You know that from the view. and you will see it, and you had seen it from your view. Continue, Alex, now real time, and we'll see what happens to the car. Call it out.
214847.
The car at this point is still continuing in a position to see straight ahead, arguably to the left where the budget in is, and have a view of what it is that is there to be seen at the budget in. Continue. I think you should do a real time.
I did. I can look through you.
Okay, so you can see, ladies and gentlemen, that what this is a good view, a good look from that different vantage point of what it is that's going on across the street. And we talked about how it is that this camera perspective is not the perspective that the people that in the car have.
We're going to start at 214826.
Please.
Backed up a little.
All right? Now you see the car moving. Still with the eye towards the north side of Michigan Avenue. All right. What I'd like to do is take us now. We've already seen this numbers of times, ladies and gentlemen. I don't need to show you again. Oh, you're free to look at it. Is the City of Inkster sign, and what the view is down Michigan Avenue to the westbound on Michigan Avenue. We know from what we've seen already in evidence that the car does a turnaround, I'm indicating with my flasher, and then pulls up at the Inkster sign, which from the view you know is a little bit to your right. I would like to take them now to the time that the car starts up and goes in on Michigan Avenue from the bus stop. This is the City of Inkster sign. Whether there's any differences there, you'll decide. But at this point now, a view is there. It's dark. It is the camera view. The prosecutor would like to have you think that because you've got a camera view, that a person who was sitting there wouldn't be able to see better. They would like you to think that if you got a camera view, that a person with binoculars couldn't see better. But you did hear testimony from Officer Zielinowski that they did have a view down the road and that they did see Dent's car come out of the parking lot of the Budget Inn.
We're going to be starting at 215549.
All right, continue real time until we get to the point we're close to the turn, and then I'm going to need you to slow it down step by step. Because at this point, clearly, the vehicle is traveling on Michigan Avenue, arguably in pursuit of the Cadillac that came out of the Budget Inn, which is here on your right. And it will make a turn. Again, this is video that the state did not slow down step by step. Coming up on Fairbairn, you're going to see the car make a right, and it's at its right-hand turn that I'm going to ask you to slow it down and call out the time. I would slow it down now.
215632.
Okay, and then step by step, please. At this point, you see the scout car, and the camera doesn't turn. But you know heads turn, and you know that the officers there who were pursuing the vehicle arguably would have been with their eye on that vehicle. And this is Fairbairn, which is going northbound for Michigan Avenue. See if you can click it faster. Now, whoop. All right, so now what I want you to see is this area here where brake lights had shown. Continue on. What is the time, by the way?
215634.
Okay, continue on, please.
Frame by frame.
Yes, ma'am. Did you see those lights again? Ladies and gentlemen, you decide. You tell me whether or not that's consistent with a vehicle that had gone down Fairbairn and made a left-hand turn onto Oakland Avenue. How do we know? All right? First of all, those lights are before the entrance to the apartment complex, which it is that Mr. Dent said that he went to and Amy Williams said that he went into. That's number one. But number two, when this vehicle continues down the street, obviously it could either go straight, where there's no vehicles, it could go right, possibly, no vehicles. We don't see any vehicles except for what that brief little flash was. The brief flash that Lieutenant Powell didn't see. The flash that she didn't take the time to show you. The flash that's consistent with what it is that we're saying, and that is we had the right car. We tripped him to the motel. We saw it come out of the motel. And then we see it going on to Fairbairn. All right, and then continue, please.
Real time?
Real time. And then you'll see the car turn, continue real time. And do we see any vehicles except for one ahead? Ladies and gentlemen, that is Mr. Dent's car. We know it's Mr. Dent's car because if we continue this, we're going to see him coming out of the car. This is a light-colored Cadillac, consistent with what it is that we saw on Michigan Avenue. And here's the traffic coming right. Look at that. Just misses. Uh-oh. Going to do it again. That's the probable cause to stop the vehicle. That's the probable cause that Aaron Wester talked about. That's what Officer Zielinowski talked about. I don't know how you refute it. Even Lieutenant Powell agreed that that was the probable cause. All right. Again, another stop sign. You were out there. You saw the condition of the street here, and it is a little bit rugged, but after this stop sign, you'll recall, and this video clearly shows, that after Hill Street, where he blows this stop sign again and continues off in a somewhat hurried manner, that this street doesn't have potholes. This is a pretty smooth street. Lights on, doesn't stop, doesn't stop, doesn't stop. Swerves a little bit, supposedly for a pothole. You decide, where's there a failure to light that street? Where's a failure on the left for the street to be lit? He's still not stopping. Now, can we have lights?
Light.
And can you tell us where we did stop?
2158, 21.
Now, all right, I got more important stuff to talk to you about. I don't have much time. I have to go into this part now, and I'm going to do it somewhat hurriedly. You have Exhibit 12, which are the medical records of Mr. Dent. Exhibit 12, which the government or the people say there is no evidence of him having any drugs in his system. All right? Medical records are kept in the ordinary course of business because people get sick and they get sick again. And the reason why they keep the medical records and they keep them accurate is so that you and me, when we go to the hospital, we're protected and that there's a record of what it is that had occurred. Doctors are trained in doing that. The records are reflective of what it is that was done that night. And they are reliable. And why do we know that? Because Dr. Aziz came in and said, in treating patients with serious injuries, and he certainly sees a share, that doctors, nurses, health professionals, they rely on what it is that are in these medical records. I don't know how any prosecutor can get up with a straight face and look you in the eye and say, because he had some expert up there and said that there were no drugs in Dent's system, that you can't look at the medical records would have been admitted into evidence, which doctors rely on every day, and say something different. Okay? And I went into the toxicology issue and the dissipation factors. We know that these records are reliable because that's what doctors do. In this instance, page 1, we see
Is this really page 1?
well, I am. These records are paginated, and these are the Garden City records. And on the first page, you will see at the very bottom right-hand side what I think is important to the issue of strangulation. You heard Mr. Dent say that his throat was strangled, not the sides. He wasn't choked off by the sides. And I submit to you, whether he was choked from the sides or was choked from the trachea, there would have been evidence of that when he was admitted to the hospital. More. When he goes into the hospital, he says he's unsure about loss of consciousness. I'll refer you to the video to determine whether or not he ever stopped moving. And he denies any nausea or vomiting or, the most important part, neck pain. Here's a guy who came in here and told you he'd been strangled. And when it was important to him to get medical treatment for what it is that he was alleged was the abuse of the police department, he's not complaining of neck pain. And I challenge you to look in these records to see whether or not he ever had a nose break. He got there on that stand under oath and told you that his nose was broken. There is no evidence that he had a nose break. Sure, he denies using cocaine. He was arrested by the police. And certainly at that point he did deny the use of cocaine. And the records are going to show that. I get it. But a urine screen was asked for. And in the urine screen, he tests positive for cocaine. You're going to see the urine screen, which is page, it's 20. Well, page 5, you can see that, you have page 5, you can see that Dr. Stop. You can see that on the fourth line from the bottom, drug screens were obtained. And if you go to page 20, you're going to see that there were a history of consultations for Mr. Dent. Okay, and in these, the report is returned back cocaine and opiate positive. Urine screen is complete. Now, at this point, he thinks that he's suffering from a subarachnoid hemorrhage. That's a serious injury.
Now is he going to read Mr. Dent's mind?
Well, let me argue that from the medical records, it shows that the doctors had thought that at one point that he was suffering from a subarachnoid hemorrhage. The medical records are also going to show you that there was a consultation that was had in the next morning relating to the subarachnoid hemorrhage. That consultation was under the consultant Louis I. Jacobs, which is on page 21. You see Louis I. Jacobs, consultation for suspected subarachnoid hemorrhage. That is the morning following the incident. You can see that. And history of present illness. Now, what does he give for his social history? What does he give to the consultant that he spoke to that morning so that he could be treated for what was at that point considered a brain injury, later ruled out, but at that point considered a brain injury? He says, instead of all the denials that you see, he occasionally uses smoking, drinking, alcohol, and I've highlighted this, states that he uses cocaine. Prosecution will have you ignore that. It's admitted in the evidence. You give it whatever weight you think. But I'm going to tell you what. If I was a drug user and I was thinking about the fact that somebody's going to operate on my brain, I'm going to tell them everything. Because drugs are brain altering. Drugs are something that you have to take into consideration when you're giving medications. He admitted right there on that page in that report, right on the very next day at 8 a.m., that he uses cocaine. And why? Because at 8 a.m., his urine screen had already come back. Can we pull up the urine screen? We're referring to which page? It is on page 25, 26. taking a look at page 26, you're going to see the lab report that comes back showing that there is urine screen for drugs, miscellaneous, and he shows for opiates, positive. Well, what's the importance of that, ladies and gentlemen? The positive opiates is because of the fact that he was injected, you saw in the first couple pages of the medical report, with morphine. Morphine is an opiate. This, to me, you decide. You decide. Does that confirm the fact that this is a valid test? It shows up a drug that we know was given. It shows up the opiates that he was given that day. And there's no medical reason whatsoever for anybody to be given cocaine. He shows positive for cocaine. I don't care if it's a metabolite, whether or not it's actual cocaine. Cocaine is in his system. He can't deny it. They shouldn't deny it, but they do. And they prop up their medical examiner, who didn't want to admit that he worked for Wayne County. Did you see how hard it was for me to get him to admit that he had taken money from Wayne County? I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but why would he be reluctant? Because he didn't want to be perceived to you as biased, and I suggest to you that that's why. Westry got up there, he admitted. He testifies for both sides. He takes money from both sides. People who come in here on their own time are expected to get money. It's not bought and paid for testimony unless it's query unreasonable. And whether or not it is unreasonable is up to you, ladies and gentlemen, to see. Is it reasonable for somebody to say, I am going to disregard totally that record, disregard totally his admission, like he and Jennifer Williams did? Now, there may be an explanation. We talked about dissipation factors, but the dissipation factors don't help the prosecution. If things dissipate out of your system, it doesn't mean they weren't there. And the fact that they were there, you can use to determine whether or not what Mr. Dent did that night, the strength that he exhibited, the amount of time in which he had resisted two big guys, later more. The reason why he continued to struggle to keep his hands free, the reason why he actively resisted, the reason why he could take the pain that he took from the number of shots that he took to the head, might have been due to something other than the fact that it was cold outside. Now, I want to get to that. I've embraced the idea of the number of hits to the head. I told you it's not pretty. But do you want to know something? When you're examining whether or not there's reasonable force here, it's not about how pretty it is. Okay? Was it effective in getting Mr. Dent to do what it is that he was required to do? And that was, for God's sakes, submit. Submit like he did in the jail. Submit like he says he did in the hospital, which, by the way, he didn't do. And I'm going to take you on a side trip. Pull up the Exhibit A. How much time do I have, Judge?
3 minutes, but I'm going to give you 10.
All right. Thanks, Judge. All right, this is Exhibit A. This is our Exhibit A. It's also in the medical record. This is a state police form. This is when they drew his blood at 4 o'clock in the morning. Okay? He was fine in the jail. He was on video. He might have known that. I don't know. But here, where there was no video, when they wanted to take his blood, and I submit, ladies and gentlemen, when he knew he was dirty, because he had taken drugs, he had time to do that over at the budget end, and he had 6 grams of cocaine, which is here in evidence. Exhibit C. Take a look down further. What does it say when it says the suspected drug? Cocaine. What does it say below that? Comments. The nurse who drew his blood said, agitated and combative. Why? Why would he not want to give his blood? He didn't have anything in his blood. He's there with a subarachnoid hemorrhage. Why would he struggle and be combative? You'd want to get medical treatment, and you wouldn't be worried about your blood. That's evidence of guilty knowledge. That's evidence that he had coke in his system, and that is evidence that puts him in a position to resist so that there's only a short amount, a little bit amount of blood that's drawn, because he's resisting, and in my view, you'll decide whether or not that affects the analysis of that blood. Because the first time that they did the test, state police did the test, they couldn't. They didn't have enough of a sample. And then miraculously they come up with, instead of 1 milligram, they come up with 2 milligrams, and now they got a sample that's sufficient in a bottle that's supposed to take 10 milligrams. Why didn't it take 10 milligrams? Because he wouldn't let him. Why wouldn't he let him? Because he knew. He knew he was dirty. He knew he'd bought drugs and used them. He knew it would show up, and he didn't want to make evidence. I've taken up a lot of your time. Prosecutor's got a very heavy burden in this case. I have none. But I have a defense that I tried to show you. When you go into the jury room, please. I won't get a chance to talk to you again. With great respect. Mr. Donaldson is going to be able to get up there, and he's going to say stuff I can't answer. But I'd like you to at least think about, what would Mr. Thomas say? What is it that I would say in response to that, so that you can fairly present both sides? He's got his view, I got mine. He's got the burden, I don't have any. But I'm asking you as jurors, when you're evaluating the evidence, to do so from the perspective of both sides, unlike the state police in this case. Unlike the media in this case. There was no strangulation. We're asking for an acquittal on strangulation. There was no assault with intent to do great bodily harm. You have the use of force continuum. It says that you have a right to step up force. And if you want to know about the test for whether or not the force that was used against him, Mr. Dent, was reasonable, he got hit 16 times in the head, and he continued to struggle. And Mr. Melendez de-escalates. He stops. He stops. And Mr. Dent continues to struggle after that, and it was then Sergeant Kreitzer comes in. Sergeant Kreitzer testified that he saw the bite mark through 4 pieces of clothes. He saw evidence of that. Sergeant Kreitzer comes in and says, okay, I got to step it up one more, and I got to give him a taser. And what did he do with the taser? He pushed it aside. Did he freeze up like you're supposed to? No. Second time, no. Third time, there might have been a miss. Fourth time, yes. Now, why? How could that happen? To an ordinary person. How does that happen? Okay? You look at the medical records. That's your answer. The medical records that are admitted in evidence for whatever consideration you want to give them. You got your answer. He struggled. He continued to struggle. They had a right to use force. He hit him in the head 16 times, and when he did it, he still continued to struggle. And it wasn't until Randazzo comes in and spells Zielinski, who you can look in the video, he's tired, you can see it. It wasn't until Randazzo comes in that the handcuffs are applied. He finally submits. This is not passive resistance, as the government, or as the people say. This was active resistance. The use of force was reasonable to an officer who would have been at the scene at the time. If that's the standard, you look at the jury instruction. No misconduct in office. Let this man go home to his wife and kids.
Thank you so much. Let's take a stretch break.
Take a short walk,
You want to? Okay, let's take a 10-minute recess.
All rise for the jury. I just